honestly, how do I advise somebody in Boca or Delray when I've like never done a deal there? I don't have marketing materials. I don't have saved audiences for them. I'm not trying to be the agent that can do everything.
The one thing that is impressive about you, and I always compare. So John and I were taught in Mike Ferry's sales system where we were talking about skill development. How do you handle objection handlers? What do you say? How do you improve on how you say what you say? And it's all about the delivery of the pitch of the sale. And we learned, I guess, through error and pain and long nights that the operations, the business side of it is the complete polar opposite of sales. And everything you learn in operations, that fundamental build out is what truly allows you to scale and have the freedom that everybody talks about. So you were able to develop these digital funnels 8 years. So that's after a year in coaching. Is that something that you learned, a course that you took specifically for that?
Yeah, the first one was Ryan Stewman, Break Free Academy. I think it's called something else now. He's out of Texas. And he used to be a mortgage broker after the crash when the licensing stuff changed. You know, he got out of it and started doing courses. And it was all about sales funnels, right? And it wasn't necessarily just for real estate agents. It was just sales funnels. He was the first person that I actually got a targeted ad from, right? So like, I feel like he was one of the first. There was others. And so he was following me around and I was like, this guy's everywhere. He wasn't everywhere. He was pixeling me because I was clicking his links. And then I was like, oh, I need to be doing this. And so that was my first taste of like a good course, good, like, okay, if I do this skill, I make more money. Yeah. And then I was hooked on, I'm a course junkie. I've probably purchased everyone's courses at this point.
With the exposure you have, what are some fundamental operation systems someone should have in their business in order for them to grow and scale at a rate that you have?
Well, so I think I should say what I've done wrong first. Right? Like, let's dissect it and reverse engineer that way. Because I was a young mom with the kids, like I was so scared to hire. I did everything. I mean, everything. There was multiple nights that I definitely didn't sleep and, you know, handled transaction stuff after the kids went to sleep or searched for investment properties and did those items. When I finally was like, okay, I think I can do a buyer's agent, I hired a buyer's agent. And then we hired a transaction coordinator. And then I hired my operations manager. And then I hired my assistant. And now, like in hindsight, and then obviously some other agents, but in hindsight, I should have hired transaction coordinator first, assistant second, buyer's agent third, operations manager fourth, and then other agents. If I were to look at it that way.
Why is that?
And I should have taken the risk of giving away some of my money for the first, 3 months of hiring somebody because I would have made a lot more quicker.
What do you mean by that? The first 3 months?
Like in the first 3 months of hiring somebody, right? Sure. Like I think a lot of people are scared to hire because they may not see a return on their investment for 3 months, right? Like they may not realize how much more time they have on that third month because they have a transaction coordinator that no longer has to ask them questions on how to do stuff and handle stuff, and they're buying back their time.
Right.
But that seems risky at first and scary at first because now you're giving up some of your money, but you're not realizing you've been giving up so much of your money by trying to do it all yourself, right? And because I'm a control freak with that first buyer's agent, that's when anything that was in my head, I turned into an SOP, checklist, screen recordings of how I do it. Like as we did that, I wish I would have been recording how I do stuff when I was first by myself, right? Or when I was like figuring it out, because I spent so much time developing systems and operations and all of that. And if I would have just screen recorded, put the link somewhere, when somebody was hired, they could have like taught themselves whatever the tasks were that I needed them to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. We had Tom Ferry on a few weeks ago and we were talking about that a little bit with him about just the fact, isn't it interesting how like sometimes we're in this business? I mean, at least I think I was in for 5 or 6 years before I actually picked my head up and said, all right, well, we need to actually document how we do what we do or which part of what we do is sort of proprietary, or what makes us different, or actually have a marketing plan. You know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy. I feel like, especially being like growing up in like a prospecting focused environment, I was just always like you said, I really related to what you said before about just always being behind. I was like, okay, I'm at 10 deals. I was supposed to be at 12. Like, find the next deal, and just didn't have the time, or the times that I actually sat down to put, some procedures in place was always like on a snow day, or like on a Sunday, or like, a day where I could actually breathe for a second.
Well, the difference is you could afford it because Erika had children. So it's like, what does it say? Necessity is the mother of creation. So it's like,
Yeah, but I mean, still then, like, even if I had a reason, I still didn't want to let any money go. I probably could have, done it and scaled up quicker if I
had the
did,
admin first.
right? And I think even people, if they don't have a reason, still think they can handle it all, but they aren't realizing that they shouldn't be handling it all. That's not a business. You're just a salesperson at that point. You're not actually running a business.
Yeah.
So are you running a business at this point?
Yes.
Does it run without you?
Yes.
That's great.
I envy you. Congratulations.
Well, I think we all want to get it to the next level, right? I mean, there's certain things within my business where if I'm on vacation, I feel like, oh, this can't get done if I'm not involved. But, I think that's why we have to sit down and set up these procedures so that people can make the next steps and relinquish some control so that things can happen without you getting involved.
Yeah. I think there's a false idea of how SOPs work. Because when we first were exposed to SOPs, we're like, oh, we'll just simply document it and have like a procedure book. And then you create it, you put it down, you never touch it again. But it's almost like a living document. And when you actually understand how that works, and then you can actually change it, procedures change, and then it can evolve without you at that point.
I love Trello personally for like marketing aspects. We use RealVolve for transactional aspects, and everything's built out. So it is literally the people have to click that they've done that task. Like, it is built out like on each listing that's put up. Like, you have to click each item that they did, put the link, like, or put whatever graphic or put whatever in it. It's not necessarily anymore just like a Google Doc. Whereas when I started, it was like a Google Doc with, backlinks.
Yeah, which is super painful. Now, so with that being said, let's imagine that you're starting fresh all over again and you gave a different perspective. Now you're in the business, you're producing, you're doing 8 to 10 transactions every single month as a solo sales agent. Your first hire is a TC. After that, you said it would be an assistant. So would there be a timeline in between? How would you build out a team if you had to start all over again?
Oh, well, I think just like that, I would do, recording and SOPing every step I'm doing, adding the transaction coordinator rather immediately, honestly. I think now there's so many companies too that you could outsource that do everything for you. That saves so much time handling the transaction, back and forth of everything. And then the assistant can buy you time for helping with buyers, for, lead follow up when you can't, errands, like, and all in between. And then at some point when you're really, really hitting it hard on listings and farming, I would be going to finding more buyer's agents.
Yeah. One thing you also mentioned was about one of your skills is being able to farm and develop a niche in the neighborhood. Talk to us a little bit more about that and how you started and when you saw results in it.
I've always stayed pretty hyper local. So Jupiter's in Palm Beach County. We're Tequesta technically is the most northern, but we're the most northern town in Palm Beach County. We're only 24 square miles. We're 53,000 residents. However, I'd say like 20,000 of those are snowbirds, right? So I'd stick it around 30,000 people is what I'm trying to get in front of at all times. And then you have to remember a good portion of those are kids. So in my mind, when I was running funnels, if I was getting my audience sizes around 20,000, I felt like I had my people, right, that I had to keep staying in front of. And then as I got listings, I started adding mailers to it, right? But I wanted the mailers to go back to the digital ads. Like, I wanted everything to be a web. But the first investor that I was speaking about earlier told me somebody has to see your name 13 times before they even remember it, right? So that was the point of the digital ads for me, was how do I get them to see me 13 times? and how quickly can I get them to see that? And then when I added in the mail, I started with 5,000 homes, and it was on a monthly basis. Now I would say we're at 7,500 homes, and I would say it's about an every other week basis of a mailer that's hitting those people, but they're also seeing our ads as well. And then there's other points that isn't necessarily in my mailer farm that within Jupiter, it is our name on placemats. All of our pens are at the nail salons. There's like different things we do specifically in that local business, because I'm just in the town, in the local businesses. I'm just hoping that they're constantly, seeing the name and realizing it. I think a lot of people start too wide. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a real estate agent of Palm Beach County. Okay. I mean, it's 45 minutes to drive from top to bottom. Like, are you really wanting to do that and show? And are you really an expert in that area? Do you really know all the neighborhoods there? I was born and raised in Jupiter. I know every street. I don't have to open up Google Maps. Like, I know it, right? So that was obvious to me. I was like, I'm a Jupiter real estate agent, and I don't ever try to be anything else. Now, what most people think is that limits them specifically to that area. We still do transactions in Martin County, northern of us. We still do them in other towns. We do, I don't like to go super south. I'm just a little it gets trafficy down there. I'm not loving it down there. But we basically go to I would say North Palm Beach, right? For anyone who's familiar. And I try to stay in that area. Because honestly, how do I advise somebody in Boca or Delray when I've never done a deal there? I don't have marketing materials. I don't have saved audiences for them. I'm not trying to be, the agent that can do everything. I'd rather refer it out and move on.
So it's fair to say that if, a buyer is moving out of Jupiter within your radius, you'll still, of course, work with that buyer. Mm-hmm. And if past clients refer you business, within a reasonable drive, you'll take it. But as far as it goes with your farming and your funnels, it's really, really for that focus on, like you said, about the 20,000 people in Jupiter.
Yep, that's my goal.